pictures for the next Palos Stories episode.
Oh, you're working on the next stories? What's the next one about?
Well, let's go talk about it.
All right. Welcome to a special edition of Palos Stories Then and Now. That's one of the shows we do here at Channel 4 that focuses on the local history here of Palos Heights. And today we're going to take a sneak peek behind the show of Palos Stories to take a look at some of the stories that didn't make it into the shows, and also a sneak peek of what's coming up in 2026. And of course, with us today we have one of the co-hosts, Dave Wurzel. Thanks for being with us today, Dave. I am actually interviewing you today. I know you're usually the one interviewing everybody, but I'm going to be the one interviewing you. And so let's jump right in. Tell us about, you were talking earlier and you mentioned that doing one of these shows is like pulling a thread of a story and that leads from one to another. So what did you mean by that?
A couple of good examples. One would be the very first show we did was Dunlaps, and in the process of doing Dunlaps, which is adjacent to Trinity's Christian College campus, also led to the Navajo Fields Golf Course. You know, why was it there? So we thought we were doing Dunlaps, and we did, but we started bumping into other, stories that we eventually end up doing. The other one that was very much like that was Navajo Fields itself. Navajo Fields,
The golf course?
Yeah, I mean, that took us in others. The fire department, one of our early shows, the fire department led to Bartlett Homes because they provide the space for their realtor office was kitty corner from where the fire department is today. And they provided the first space for a fire barn for a fire truck that burned down, ironically. But so it was almost like, well, we're telling the story of the fire department, but that led to Bartlett Homes, also led to the library. The library has space there, and so we had all these interconnections. Yeah.
It's funny, our community is only 75, so many years old, and yet there's so much to tell, so many stories to tell. So what were some of the things, you do a lot of research for this, you and your volunteers do tons of research before you even do a show. So but not everything can make it into the show. There's just too much. So what are some of the things that you discovered about doing some of these?
It's a really interesting question because we want to be accurate. We're telling the history of Palos Heights, and so Bartlett Homes was, it's an incredible story because Bartlett, the impact on the Palos community is, I don't know if it can be overstated really, but at the same time, we found, in the process of doing that research, we found a deed or, in their contract language that property would be sold to whites only, no people of color. And unfortunately, that was typical of the time period. This is the early 30s, and all over the United States and the Chicagoland area, that type of language and housing contracts was pretty typical.
But to see that in writing is kind of startling.
Right, that it was our community.
Yeah. What were some other examples things that were that were left out of the show?
Yeah, there are a lot of them actually, and they were all to different degrees. Like, can we verify this? Dunlaps was another one. We heard quite a bit about what Dunlaps was. We know it was a farmhouse before it would eventually become a restaurant, but there were stories about it prior to that in between, and some of them were very interesting, very entertaining. None of them we could verify, and we felt it would be irresponsible to, put out that kind of, just story for sake of story that potentially is very inaccurate.
Right. Then even the name of Palos Heights, the city.
Yeah. Right. That's an interesting one because that one we mentioned, but we weren't quite sure all of it. So we know the area was referred to as Harlem Heights.
This is prior to becoming a city, of
course.
Right,
before it's incorporated, the area was referred to because Harlem Avenue, went right through it, and there was very little out here at that time. And so when Bartlett buys the property, he changed the name to Palos Heights. So we know that's how it went from Harlem to Palos. And it seems like, this is where we're not sure, but it seems like it was a marketing strategy because our neighbor, so he, this is in the early 30s, our much better known neighbor to the west, Palos Park, by association, he drew the Palos name.
Yeah. Yeah, a community that's been there, was
Yes.
well established, well over 100 years old. Worth to the north of here was also well over 100 years
Right.
old. Try to
Yeah.
take something from the community around it.
Yeah, and Palos as a name was very identifiable in the Chicagoland
Yeah.
area.
Okay.
You had people coming to Palos Park for the water, to go hiking in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
and so to co-opt that name, I think was good strategy on his
Yeah.
part.
Okay, so what were some of the other interesting things you discovered about some of the shows you've done?
Well, we're kind of talking about Bartlett. I mean, one of the most interesting things I thought was his concept of the farmlet. He buys this property during the Depression, which to me seems incredibly risky, but he divides out all the land on both sides of Harlem Avenue. And one of the several selling features were, to people come from Chicago, it's cheaper, you'll have a home, and you'll have a farmlet. And
A farmlet?
And if it's in the brochure, there's a map. Each piece of property had room for fruit trees, a small orchard, a vegetable garden, beehive.
Yeah.
There was this element of you'll be semi-self-sufficient.
Yeah.
During the Depression, that probably is a pretty good marketing angle.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have something very nice. And so because of that, we also have the lot sizes that we have today, which are actually fairly large,
Yeah.
and is a nice legacy of what he left behind.
I can imagine him, needing something to bring people out to this area.
Yes.
There was absolutely nothing out.
Right.
It's just vast farmland, and so to get people to come out of the city
Right.
for a reason to come out here.
Yeah, the only thing that would have existed was Navajo Fields Golf Course.
Yeah. All right. What about Dunlap's? That was one of your first shows.
Yeah, Dunlap's I found really interesting because I thought we were doing the restaurant that now is Bootsma Bookstore Cafe and probably eventually something else, but it wasn't his first location. He had a food stand. Dunlap's had a food stand at 124th and LaGrange Road. And then,
Way back when?
Yeah, this is the 1920s. And then he opens another food stand a little bit later on Keene Avenue between 119th and Route 83, which today is all Forest Reserve, and it almost looks like it doesn't make sense. But if you consider the 1920s,
And the use of the land at the time?
right, people coming from Chicago for spring water to go hiking in the,
Out in this
trails.
area.
Yes.
Palos Park, well known for all of that,
Right.
which was attraction. People did come out on the train,
Mm-hmm.
which led them out around present-day Hush Horse, and they
Right.
would come and hike, but there were no convenience stores,
Right.
no 7-Elevens.
Right.
Yeah, so people had no place to, when they
Right.
come all this time, all this distance to spend the whole day, they didn't have a place to
No.
find food or such. So Dunlap's set up these concession stands.
So,
Yeah.
and then his move in 45 to, the restaurant that we all know seems really smart too, because Bartlett is developing the real estate in that area, homes are starting to be built, and there's this world-class golf course. So Dunlap's was an interesting journey, I think.
Yeah, which also leads, again, another thread that leads to your golf course again, right?
Yeah.
What was one of the interesting things you found out about that?
The golf course to me was really interesting because, first of all, that it was world premiere. Thinking about it being built in the late 20s, people coming out here, there's nothing out here, but eventually it gets recognized as a premier course in the Chicagoland area, and that it did cover a huge chunk of what we think of Old Palos today, from
Yeah.
Route 83 to 127th, Oak Park, to just a few blocks west of Ridgeland. Just an amazing thing to, golf course destination point way out here.
Yeah. And what about the fire department and the library?
The fire department was interesting because of how it grew and developed and became an institution, and its depends on how. There's a great story in that episode about a fire, a house burned down, but the nearest help they could get was from Orland Park or Oak Lawn, and this is, I think, was the early 40s, and to get here, they couldn't get here in time,
Yeah.
and there was a crowd of people, and there was traffic
Yeah.
and congestion. But related to that then was, and we need a library, and so we had a library when they eventually built the fire department, but the library actually, the first library was in a private citizen's business space.
Just a
open-
room with books, yeah?
Yeah, room with books, open
Tiny
like
room.
twice a week for a couple hours a day on Harlem Avenue. Then eventually the library moved to the community center that Bartlett opened, and that was on 71st Avenue between 121st and 122nd. And then it moved to its third location, the fire department, the location today.
Which looked very different. We're going to show the picture of
yeah,
it.
we have great pictures. The first space was, like a large walk-in closet. There was a great picture that, a young person.
The little boy.
Yeah, going inside. But obviously, eventually, it's fourth location today that we all know and frequent.
And then even Chicago Christian High School.
Yeah.
What did you learn about that?
Yeah, to me personally, that was interesting because when we first moved to Palos, and I was in high school at the time, I was like, well, why is it Chicago Christian? Why not Palos Christian?
Oh.
and it wasn't a secret, but we study that, and you see pictures of Chicago Christian when it was in the Englewood neighborhood in Chicago, before it migrated to its current location because Navajo Fields, sold off the land. So
again, all connected.
Yeah, there's quite a tapestry there.
That is for sure. So what's coming up in 2026?
There's a lot on the docket right now. We just finished recording a show that's going to be edited and should be out very soon, the Palos Gun Club.
Okay.
We were researching Trinity Christian College. That was not the first plan, but because it was sold and now bought, and so there'll probably be a part 2.
Okay.
But we're gonna visit the story of Trinity Christian College.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, we're also looking at the police department, and the Harlem Avenue Business District is a big one. I'm not sure how to divide that. People in the community are familiar with, remember Royal Blue and Ben Franklin's, Franklin Restaurant, Public House now, and Reenie's, Golden Shoes. That was a slot car store at one point,
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out how to divide that up. But that will happen at some point. We want to talk about schools. Where do kids go to schools when they lived in Palos? Before Shepherd and Navajo and Chippewa and Independence, where did they go? So those are all things that we're working on.
So you talk about the thread that runs through it. Just listening to you talk, it's like it's the lives of people, the local history. We wonder why is this building here, or why is this building here, or why does this road look like the way it does? But there's all these connections back to the lives of the people who lived before us, and that's a thread that works through everything.
Yeah, the story is the Palos Gun Club is a great example of that.
Because this one, you had something else to share on that?
Yeah, well, the present day Lake Catherine, and we have a lot of great pictures. That gun club established itself in the late 1930s, and 75th Avenue kind of heads right into their parking lot, and the gun club is there in the parking lot, and the gun towers and the shooting range. We got a lot of great pictures that people will be able to see very soon. A couple sneak previews right now. How did it go from a gun club to, Mayor Simpson concept of a nature center to Lake Catherine?
Yeah.
And,
so we can say without the gun club, there would not have been in Lake Catherine.
It feels that way sometimes. And again, there's a great story, connected to some of these. So
so tune in to find out what they are, folks. Well, Dave, thanks so much for sharing these stories with us. I know there's a lot of your volunteers. You do a ton of work with us, and you and Adam and Spencer work on shooting, trying to make the stories the best way you can tell in a short thing. But hopefully what it does for everybody in the community is it sparks your interest in local history and what people did years and years and years ago had an effect on the city, and might make you think what we are doing today will have an effect on what's yet to come.
And a special shout out to Sheila, our head researcher.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes through many filtering processes, but she's out in front of collecting all that for us. So.
Yeah, there we go.
But there is a lot.
It's a big team effort.
It is. This is a big project.
Good. And one that I feel important to our community because it shares the lessons that we have learned over all the years.
Yeah,
so
preserves our story.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks you, Dave. Thanks for doing that. And thank all of you for joining us today and for watching this special episode of Palos Stories Then and Now. We'll see you next time.